The woods stood before me, dark and menacing. I hesitated, then took a deep breath and stepped inside. The air grew cold. A shiver ran down my spine. The sun dipped below the trees. Shadows stretched, twisting like gnarled fingers. The forest floor became a pit of inky blackness. Unease coiled in my stomach. I pushed on, desperate to find my way through before true night fell. Each step filled me with growing dread. I was not alone in these woods. The wind picked up, moaning through the trees. It sounded like whispers, whispers that spoke my name. I stopped, holding my breath, straining to listen. A twig snapped behind me. I whirled around, heart pounding. Nothing, just the deepening shadows and the rustling leaves, but fear had me in its grip. The trees seemed to press closer, their branches twisting, reaching for me like skeletal arms. I had to get out of this place, now! I ran, my feet catching on roots and rocks. Panic surged through me. Every shadow seemed to hold a lurking danger. Every rustle of leaves sounded like footsteps. The path, if there ever was one, had vanished. I was hopelessly lost, trapped in a maze of ancient trees and creeping shadows. My breath came in ragged gasps. A low growl echoed through the woods, sending a fresh wave of terror through me. Something was hunting me, and I was the prey. Ahead, through the trees, a flicker of light. Hope surged through me. A house! Salvation! I stumbled towards it, my legs leaden with exhaustion. As I drew closer, the light resolved itself into a single window, glowing eerily in the darkness. But something wasn't right. The air grew colder, the hairs on the back of my neck prickled. I reached the house, my hand trembling as I reached for the doorknob. It was ice cold to the touch. And then, I heard it. A voice, whispering from within. There's no escape. Section 5. Embrace the darkness. The voice. It was ancient, filled with a chilling malice that froze my blood. The doorknob felt like a block of ice in my grasp. I wanted to run, but my feet were rooted to the spot. The whispering grew louder, weaving its way around my thoughts, filling me with a terror so profound it bordered on paralysis. The voice called to me, drew me in. Slowly, as if guided by an unseen force, I turned the knob. The door creaked open, revealing an impenetrable darkness within. A darkness I felt compelled to enter. The interior of the house was pitch black, the kind of darkness that seems to swallow everything whole. Shadows danced in the corners, and the air was thick with the smell of decay, a pungent reminder of the house's long abandonment. The wooden floor creaked under my weight, each step echoing through the empty halls like a ghostly whisper. The walls, once vibrant with life, were now covered in mold and rot, the wallpaper peeling away like dead skin. The air was heavy, almost suffocating, filled with the scent of mildew and something else, something ancient and forgotten. I stepped inside, my hand reaching out, searching for a light switch, a wall, anything familiar. The darkness was disorienting, making it hard to tell where one room ended and another began. My fingers brushed against the rough texture of the wall, feeling the cold, damp surface beneath my touch. As I moved further into the house, my hand continued to feel along the wall, searching for something, anything that could provide a clue to the house's past. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional creak of the floorboards and the distant sound of dripping water. My fingers brushed against something cold and smooth. A necklace. It felt out of place in this decaying house, like a relic from a different time. I carefully lifted it, the metal cool against my skin, and brought it closer to my eyes, trying to make out its details in the dim light. I brought it closer, my fingers tracing the outline of a strange amulet. The design was intricate, with patterns that seemed to shift and change as I looked at them. It was circular, made of a dark, unknown metal that seemed to absorb the light around it. It was circular, made of a dark, unknown metal. The craftsmanship was exquisite, unlike anything I had ever seen before. An inscription, etched in a language I didn't recognize, pulsed with a faint internal light, casting an eerie glow on my face. An inscription, etched in a language I didn't recognize, pulsed with a faint internal light. The symbols were strange, almost otherworldly, and as I stared at them I felt a strange connection, as if the amulet was trying to communicate with me. As I held it, a jolt of energy coursed through me. It was unlike anything I had ever felt before, a surge of power that seemed to awaken something deep within me. The amulet's light grew brighter and I could feel its energy pulsing in time with my heartbeat. The inscription on the amulet flared brightly, bathing the room in an eerie green light. The shadows retreated and for a moment I could see the room clearly. It was filled with old furniture, covered in dust and cobwebs, but there was something else, something hidden just out of sight. This was no ordinary house. It was a place of secrets, a place where the past and present seemed to collide. As I stood there holding the amulet, I knew that I had stumbled upon something extraordinary, something that would change my life forever. The green light illuminated the room, revealing decaying furniture draped in cobwebs. The air was thick with dust, making it hard to breathe. Every step I took stirred up tiny particles that danced in the eerie glow. The room felt like it had been forgotten by time, a relic of a past long gone. The walls were lined with shelves, each one filled with books whose pages had yellowed with age. The floorboards creaked under my weight, adding to the sense of unease that hung in the air. And then, I saw them, dust-covered portraits on the walls, their subjects staring out with eyes that seemed to follow my every move. But that's not what stole my attention. It was the figures. Standing in the shadows, their eyes glowing with the same eerie green light as the amulet, were people. Or at least, they looked like people. Their forms were shrouded in darkness, making it hard to discern their features. But their eyes, those glowing eyes, were unmistakable. They seemed to pierce through the darkness, locking onto me with an intensity that sent chills down my spine. Or rather, they looked like people. Their skin was pallid, almost translucent, their expressions vacant, their eyes filled with a hollow hunger. They were all staring at me, their gazes filled with a mixture of longing and malice. It was as if they were waiting for something, or someone. I could feel their eyes on me, watching my every move. The room seemed to grow colder, the air thick with an unspoken tension. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. Their eyes held me captive, drawing me in with their eerie glow. And then it hit me. The inscription on the amulet hadn't just illuminated the room, it had awakened them. These figures, these ghostly apparitions had been brought to life by the amulet's power. I could feel a growing horror as I realized the implications. The amulet was more than just a trinket, it was a key, a catalyst for something far more sinister. The figures began to move, their eyes never leaving me. I could hear whispers, faint and indistinct, filling the room with a sense of dread. I knew I had to get out, but my feet felt rooted to the spot. The amulet's power was overwhelming, and I could feel its pull, drawing me deeper into the darkness. The figures began to move towards me, their movements slow and deliberate, like predators stalking their prey. I backed away, my heart pounding in my chest, my mind reeling from the impossible truth. These were no ordinary people. They were trapped here, bound to this house, their souls tethered to the amulet, and I, unwittingly, had become their jailer. The amulet pulsed warmly in my hand, a rhythmic beat that mirrored the growing dread in my own heart. I was trapped in a nightmare, and the worst was yet to come. One of the figures, a woman with long, flowing hair, emerged from the shadows of the dense forest. Her presence was both mesmerizing and terrifying, as if she was a part of the forest itself. The way she moved with an ethereal grace made it seem like she was gliding rather than walking. Her hair, cascading down her back, shimmered in the dim light filtering through the canopy above. Her eyes, glowing with an icy fire, locked onto mine. There was an intensity in her gaze that made it impossible to look away. She reached out towards me, her fingers elongated and almost translucent, as if they were made of mist. The air around her seemed to crackle with energy, a palpable force that sent shivers down my spine. Her touch was cold, colder than anything I'd ever felt before. It was as if the very essence of winter had seeped into my bones. I could feel the chill spreading through my body, making me shiver uncontrollably. It was a touch that spoke of ancient sorrows and untold stories, a touch that carried the weight of centuries. In that moment, a realization dawned upon me. The figures in the woods, the eerie presence that had been haunting me, they weren't malevolent spirits out to harm me. They were trapped, just like I was. Their desperation was palpable, a silent cry for help that resonated deep within me. They weren't trying to harm me. They were trying to communicate, to convey their plight. They needed me, not as a victim, but as a savior. The weight of this understanding settled heavily on my shoulders, but it also brought a strange sense of relief. I wasn't alone in my struggle, we were in this together. The figures were desperate to escape their prison, a prison that had held them captive for eons. They saw me as their only hope, a conduit through which they could break free. But there was a catch. In helping them, I risked being pulled into their world, a world of shadows and eternal night. To use me as a conduit to break free from their prison, They needed to merge their essence with mine. It was a dangerous gamble, one that could either set them free or doom us all. The forest around us seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the outcome of this fateful decision. But in doing so, they would drag me down with them. The thought of being trapped in their world, of losing my own identity, was terrifying, yet there was a part of me that felt a strange kinship with these lost souls. Their struggle was my struggle, their pain my pain. The amulet I wore around my neck, a family heirloom passed down through generations, began to pulse with a final burst of energy. It was as if it sensed the gravity of the situation and was responding to it. The light from the amulet grew brighter and brighter, illuminating the dark forest around us. The light intensified until it filled my vision completely. It was blinding, a pure radiant light that seemed to burn away the shadows. For a moment I felt a sense of peace, a connection to something greater than myself. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the light vanished, plunging me into darkness. I was lost in the cursed woods. The darkness was suffocating, pressing in on me from all sides. I could hear the whispers of the trapped souls, their voices a haunting melody that echoed through the trees. I stumbled through the underbrush, my heart pounding in my chest. And I was not alone. The presence of the figures was still there, watching me, guiding me. They were no longer just shadows in the forest, they were a part of me now. Together, we would find a way out of this cursed place, or we would be lost forever.